But Muktananda had a system, right? And it was not chaotic. It was a very...
He was, I think, had merged with his guru, Bhagwan Nityananda. You know, his statue's here.
Right.
Bhagwan Nityananda was kind of in the thought-free state, in Shambhavi Mudra, or in Bhairavi Mudra. He was a unique being, one like Shirdi Sai Baba, one of these creatures who really lived beyond the mind. And when Baba came to him, he was a very striving yogi, you know, conventional striving yogi, but he got powerful Shaktipat. Bhagwan looked in his eyes and transmitted this energy to him that blew him away, and he had a cosmic experience. It's in his book, Play of Consciousness. You must have read that.
I don't know which one I read, but I remember there's one little book I think Muktananda wrote about Nityananda. Maybe that's the only book about Nityananda.
You got to read Play of Consciousness. Yeah. That's about his spiritual awakening and then his sadhana. So he had this massive Shaktipat, and then he started having physical kriyas and, you know, visionary experience, all kinds of things. And then he attained the goal. And so I always felt with him, even though he was a very colorful character, that everything came from this place of the self, from the highest place. And that words would just sort of bubble up out of that. That's how I felt him. I couldn't see him any different. It was like, it's just what I saw. So he didn't have premeditation about things. I think he just flowed with what happened. And, you know, he more and more people came, and, you know, he got very big by the end. We had, you know, big crowds, and he was in L.A. in 1980, and the 2,000 people a night, and, you know, huge crowds. Then he went back to India, and they had thousands in the ashram there. By that time, he had sent me away and told me go start an ashram and teach. So I was doing that by that time.
So is that hard when you're sent away by your own guru?
Yeah. Well, yes. In a way, I was heartbroken. And then on the other hand, I saw, because he said, whatever you do, I'll be behind you. And I didn't think, you know, he's going to personally be behind me, like he'll write me a check or something. But I felt that he was saying that the body of Shakti will be behind you, you know, the power will be behind you. And so I saw it was much better for me to do what he said and cooperate with it than be in his presence where I would have probably fried to death. It would have been too much. So it's good to surrender and flow. So I did have a personal feeling of heartbreak because I had become addicted to being around him, but then I saw the rewards were much greater.
I wonder if that, you know, that's pretty shocking. Okay, somebody's there and there's such a connection, you know, and it's a love connection too. And there's such a connection, you know. Yeah. And then just to throw them out and say, okay, now you've had enough. You're on your own, you know.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And you don't know if all those connections are snipped or if they're just stretched or, you know, exactly. But wouldn't it be better just to come and go and come and go? Like you come in and you tank up, and then you go out in society and say, I wonder how portable this is, and just check it out, you know.
Yeah, well, that's a method.
You know, I don't know. That seems to be what I like to do, you know.
That's perfectly valid. It's normal. That's a normal method. My life was different because I went to India, gave up my career. I was an English literature teacher at Indiana University. I gave up my career. I didn't have any name or address. I knew that I was going to meet my master in India.
Not even knowing who it was, right?
Had no idea. But something, because when I met Ram Dass, the American yogi, something was transmitted to me where I knew I had to go to India. I'd meet someone.
So you went to his guru, right?
I what?
Ram Dass's guru.
I did. I met Ram Dass's guru, Nim Karoli Baba. I met a number of great saints.
So then what happened with Neem Karoli Baba? He was more silent, right? Was he living out of the silence?
He was another great being of that level, but I wasn't yet ready to, or karmically I wasn't supposed to be with him. I don't know what it was. He was certainly great. And he was fascinating because he seemed to come from that higher consciousness. But where my head was at then was that he seemed too formless for me. I wanted to learn yoga. I wanted to learn the techniques of yoga. And so I looked at him and I thought, wow, this guy's beautiful. But what do you do about it? What do you do with it? So instead I went to Haridas Baba, who is a very good yogi, still alive, California. And he taught me yoga, pranayama, asanas, a lot of the scriptural stuff. And
mostly then, in America, we just think of the asanas, right?
Asanas, yeah. We did all kinds of things. We did a lot of pranayama, breathing exercises, 3 or 4 times a day. We did the cleansing, where we put a thing up your nose and pull it out the mouth. And then the best one was swallowing cloth, where you took a bandage about 24 feet long.
And then drag it back out again.
Swallow it and pull it back out. And
yeah. That
cleaned
tickles.
all the mucus and all that stuff. So I did that with him. I lived with him in the winter of 70, 71 up in Hardwar. And I got a lot out of it. But I also knew now I was ready for somebody like Nim Karoli. And that's when I moved on and met Muktananda. And Muktananda also, he was in that state, but his ashram, when I got to his ashram, I was very impressed because it was so orderly. It had like a military discipline, and I thought, this is what I need. Up in the morning, at 3:30 in the morning, bell rings, you're up, you're meditating, you're working, you're chanting, all day long, structured like that. He cracked the whip. It was so fierce. Yeah. And there were no external things. There was no TV or nothing. It was just focusing on yourself. So I went from the 60s, where I was totally involved in the culture. I used to go to the Fillmore East every week. I heard all the bands. I was involved in everything. And I was in graduate school and also teaching. And I went to nothing. Like infinite space, like I could have been in the Vedic ages, thousands of years ago. No input, just the yoga. So
you went to nothing in that structure. In other words, it took the structure that was a really intense structure, right?
Yeah, totally. I was totally a cultural person, I was, very involved in art and thought and, Western stuff. And I went into a time warp where there was nothing except my own matrikas to examine and go deeper. It's an infinite space. It was great. It was the greatest thing. But boy, it was very difficult. Yeah. Everything came up. In that space, everything comes up. You have to deal with all your tendencies, your anger, your desire.
Well, that's what we think about an ashram from the outside. We think that that's a very intense space, and then it's made to break you down, right? Is that true or what? Or that one was? That one was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
And so then we think the way they do it is okay, I was in the Osho thing. My ex-wife was in charge of building the hotel on the ranch out in Oregon.
Yeah.
She had never even picked up a hammer.
Yeah.
She had all these builders working for her, right? And she was the boss.
Well, I can't speak for
Osho.
Osho.
So then the builders, the builders were freaking out. Like, well, how am I going to tell this lady how to build a hotel? And so then that's one way to break it down, Like I even heard people around here mention that where's the master plan for this place, We put in all the decorations and then try to put in the foundation. Is that designed to break it down or what?
No, it's organic,
It's just organic, right?
Yeah, sometimes, there's some masters who make you dig a hole and then fill it up.
Oh, yeah.
And Gurdjieff used to do stuff like that.
Okay, good. Please, Dad.
Yeah, but Baba was more practical. But
yeah, he'd dig a hole that he needed, right?
Yeah, hole he needed. That's right. Exactly. So we try to do that here. But this ashram is different. That ashram was in rural India, and you were very far away, and you could focus. And this ashram is in the middle. It's not urban, but it's not in the country, and so people often have jobs and so on. They come and go. So it's a different situation, but it's very intense in its own way. Every ashram will be intense, but in unique ways. So we have about 40 people living here. And that ashram, Baba's, it started with about 150, and then By the time he died, there might have been 3,000 or 4,000 living there.
A village, a total village, right?
That's like a village, yeah.
Yeah.
Many, many different situations and things.
So many masters talk about like the ashram grounds, and just when you cross the fence, the energy is a different feel to it, or has a different.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, an ashram of a siddha has power of some sort. It can be more active, or could be more love power, more illumined power. It can be different kinds of powers, but it's the same one power with its own personality. And yet you also discover that the laws of the universe don't change at the ashram gates, that the same forces are outside too. And then you learn how to take that energy and still be in touch with it when you're out in your normal life also. That's one of the skills that ashramites have to learn.
I mean, that's the most important skill. That's the only reason for it, isn't it? I mean,
Tremendous.
or otherwise, why are we on the earth?
Exactly. If we all had to be in a little pod somewhere, what good would it be? It would be to solve the problem. As Samadhi said, Sahaja Samadhi, which is the natural state. The natural state, not the state with your eyes closed. See, in Shaivism, they have the concept of Atma Vyapti, which is where you know yourself. And that's a great skill, to meditate and know yourself. But that's only half of it. The rest of it is what they called Shiva Vyapti, where you take that self-knowledge and you bring it into the world. Then only can you say you have attained. So first you know yourself, and then you keep that contact with the self while operating in your life, whatever your life is.